Hi, ladies. All right, so today I'm going to do a video on the difference between Horeb and Sinai. You have to read Exodus and Deuteronomy together in order to get the full picture. So if you read through Exodus, Moses goes into Egypt. He says, Jehovah says, let my people go. Pharaoh says, no. There's all these plagues. 10th plague, finally, Pharaoh says, fine, get out. And all of the Israelites flee um, in the middle of the night, essentially. Um, they leave, they go through the wilderness, and they come to the Red Sea. The Egyptians at this point Pharaoh decided that he actually wanted the people to stay, and so he sends the army after them. God splits the Red Sea. Israel comes through the Red Sea. The water drowns Pharaoh's army, and then the Israelites are free and safe, but they're in the desert. So now they start complaining. They're hungry, they're tired, they're thirsty. They should have stayed in Egypt. It was so much better. They come to Horeb in chapter 17. They come to Horeb. God has at this point started giving them manna, which is the bread from heaven that settles in the dew in the morning. And then in chapter 17, they get to the rock at Horeb. Moses smites the rock, and the life-giving water comes gushing out. And now the people have water to drink. If you go forward a chapter, so they're kind of just camped here now at Horeb. They've set up camp, and they're kind of hanging out. In chapter 19, God says, "Remember everything that I did in Egypt to bring you out of bondage." And then he says, "Moses, say this to the house of Jacob and tell the children of Israel." Verse 4, "You have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which you shall speak unto the children of Israel." So Moses says this, and then in verse 8, all the people answered together and said, "All that Jehovah has spoken we will do." And Moses returned the words of the people unto Jehovah. Okay, so they're at Horeb, and they verbally agree to keep this covenant that's going to make them a peculiar treasure, a kingdom of priests, and a holy nation. They're like, yeah, we've seen what this God can do. This Jehovah God is pretty awesome. We're going to serve him. We're going to be his people. We're going to keep this covenant. We want to be those people. Continue in chapter 19. Jehovah says, "Sanctify yourself for 3 days, and then come meet me at Sinai." And then Moses, everybody, so they're at Horeb. If you look on Google Earth, you can actually see this. Google the split rock at Horeb, and it will bring you there. And then Google Mount Sinai. It's like 6.5 miles away. So they're camped at they're camped at the rock at Horeb, and then they sanctify themselves, and on the third day they walk themselves to Mount Sinai, and they're at the base of the mount. Moses goes up, talks to God. God says, verse 24, Jehovah said unto him, "Away, get thee down, and you shall come up, you and Aaron with you, but let not the priests and the people break through to come unto Jehovah, lest he break forth upon them." So Moses went down unto the people and spake to them, and God spake all these words, saying, "I am Jehovah your God. You shall have no other gods before me." And he speaks the 10 Commandments. So at Horeb, hi baby girl, at Horeb they agreed to keep the covenant without knowing what that covenant was. 3 days later, they go to Sinai and they get the terms of that covenant, which is the 10 Commandments. So now they know what that covenant is, how to become that kingdom of priests, that holy nation, and the peculiar treasure is to keep these 10 Commandments. So, did they keep them? No, they didn't. They did not. Moses went down. He told them the 10 Commandments, right? So now they know what the terms of the covenant are. Moses went back up to be with God for 40 days and 40 nights. And while he was up there, jump forward to chapter 32, it says, "And when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, the people gathered themselves together unto Aaron and said unto him, Make us gods, which shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we wrought not what is become of him." Sorry, the Old English is terrible. Which is, I can understand why this is a bit confusing. So they're saying, Aaron, get up and make us gods, because we don't know what happened to this Moses. He brought us out of Egypt, and now he's disappeared. So make us gods. And then Aaron said, break off the golden earrings, which are in the ears of your wives and your sons and your daughters, and bring them unto me. And he fashioned with a graving tool and made a molten calf. And they said, These be thy gods, O Israel, which brought you up out of the land of Egypt. So they've already gotten the 10 Commandments. Moses is speaking to God. He's learning like God's character. If you read through Exodus, the book of Exodus, right? God is giving him the instructions for the priesthood. Now, why would he be getting instructions for the priesthood before they've broken the covenant? Because God knows the end from the beginning. So if you read the removed book of Jubilees, it tells you very plainly that God knew they were going to break the covenant. So he had Moses start writing the sacrificial law. He knew they were going to do this. So in Exodus, you start getting some of these pieces. You get the pieces for the priesthood. And then you get Leviticus right after, which is going to tell you the specifics of the sacrificial law. So they made unto them the golden calf in Exodus 32. Then we go through, you can go through Leviticus to find out what the punishment was for breaking that law. So if you jump over to Deuteronomy 4-10 is pretty much the retelling of Horeb. And then the end of Deuteronomy, you get the explanation of Sinai. So in Deuteronomy 4, I'll start at verse 9. It says, Take heed to yourself and keep your soul diligently, lest you forget the things which your eyes have seen, and lest they depart from your heart all the days of your life. But teach them to your sons and to your sons' sons, especially the day that thou stood before Jehovah your God in Horeb, when Jehovah said unto you, Gather me the people together, that I will make them hear my words, that they may learn to fear me in the days that they shall live upon the earth, and that they may teach their children. And you came and stood near unto the mountain, and the mountain burned with fire unto the midst of heaven, with darkness, clouds, and thick darkness. And Jehovah spoke unto you out of the midst of the fire. You heard the voice of the words, but saw no similitude, only heard a voice. And he declared unto you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform, even 10 commandments, and he wrote them upon 2 tables of stone. Okay, so he says that in this second telling of Deuteronomy, Moses is reminding the people, he says, remember this covenant, especially what you heard at Horeb, and then what you agreed to at Horeb, especially in the day that you stood before Jehovah your God in Horeb, when he said, if you keep my covenant and obey my voice, you will be unto me a peculiar treasure, a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. And then when you went to the mountain and you heard the words spoke. So remember that. Remember that especially, and teach that to your sons and your sons' sons. That's Horeb. And then we get the second telling of the 10 Commandments in Deuteronomy 5. Deuteronomy 6 tells you that the fear of God and the love of God is the keeping of the commandments. So to love Jehovah your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your might. And this is what Yeshua says. The great commandment is to love God with all your heart, soul, and might. That is Deuteronomy 6. It's to keep the 10 commandments. So the fear of God and the love of God is the keeping of the 10 commandments. And then verse 25, it says, it will become our righteousness if we observe to do all these commandments before Jehovah our God. So that's Deuteronomy 6. Deuteronomy 9 reminds you that in Horeb, you provoked Jehovah to wrath, and that he was going to destroy you. In verse 12, it said, Jehovah said unto me, arise, get thee down quickly from hence, for thy people which you have brought out of Egypt have corrupted themselves, and they are quickly turned aside out of the way which I commanded them, and they have made them a molten image. So they know that the 10 commandments are the covenant. They know not to make a molten image, no graven images of anything that is in the heavens above, in the earth, or in the sea beneath. And what did they do? They said, make us a god, because Moses has disappeared. We don't know where he is. They made a golden calf, and they said, this will be our God. So Deuteronomy is reminding you of, remember the covenant that you made in Horeb, that you made the covenant in Horeb, and then you heard the word spoke from the mountain that was on fire, which is Sinai. And then you provoked him to anger with this calf. And then if you read through Exodus 32, you're going to see that Moses came down from the mount and he shattered the 2 tables of stone, symbolizing that they broke the covenant. And then Deuteronomy 10, it says, at that time Jehovah said unto me, hew thee 2 tables of stone like unto the first, and come up unto me into the mount, and make you an ark of wood. And I will write on the tables the words that were in the first tables which you broke, and you shall put them in the ark. And I made an ark, I, Moses, made an ark of shittim wood, and hewn 2 tables of stone like unto the first, and went up into the mount, having the tables in my hand. And he, Jehovah, wrote on the tables, according to the first writing, the 10 commandments which Jehovah spake unto you in the mount out of the midst of the fire in the day of the assembly. And Jehovah gave them unto me. So, I'll just read one more. And I turned myself and came down from the mount and put the tables in the ark which I had made. And there they be, as Jehovah commanded me. So Moses got the first tables of stone. The Israelites built themselves a golden calf after they heard the covenant, so they knew not to. Moses comes down, shatters the 2 tables of stone with the 10 commandments written on them, goes back up Mount Sinai, gets 2 new tables of stone, makes himself an ark, and puts the tables inside the ark. Now the ark is representative of your heart, right? You have to write the law on your heart. So we're writing the law that's inside the Ark of the Covenant on your heart. That's the 10 Commandments. That is what is inside the Ark of the Covenant. Now, when they transgressed with the golden calf, Moses went back up Mount Sinai. He got 2 new tables of stone. He also got the book of the law. Okay, and this, we have to jump forward, not that far, to Deuteronomy 31. Hey, stop that. Stop. No, leave it. Leave it. Okay, so Moses, all right, so after Exodus comes Leviticus, right? So they broke the covenant in Exodus 32. Moses comes down, he shatters the 2 tables of stone. He goes back up Mount Sinai, he gets 2 new tables of stone and the book of the law, and then the book of the law is explained in the book of Leviticus, right? That's the sacrificial law. So in Deuteronomy 31, Moses, at this point, he knows that he's not going into the promised land, right? He got really fed up with the Israelites. He hit the rock when God said, speak to the rock to get more water. God says, speak to the rock. Jehovah hit the rock. The punishment for his disobedience is that he does not get to go into the promised land. So in Deuteronomy 31, Moses is aware of this. It's time for Joshua to step up, and he's going to be the leader, take the Israelites into the promised land. And so this is Moses basically passing the torch. In verse 23, it says, he, Moses, gave Joshua, son of Nun, a charge and said, be strong and of good courage, for you shall bring the children of Israel into the land which I swear unto them, and I will be with you. And it came to pass, when Moses had made an end of writing the words of this law in a book, until it were finished, that Moses commanded the Levites, which bear the ark of the covenant of Jehovah, saying, take this book of the law and put it in the side of the ark of Jehovah your God, that it may be there for a witness against you. For I know your rebellion and your stiff neck. Behold, while I am yet alive with you this day, you have been rebellious against Jehovah, and how much more after my death. So Moses knows that the people are going to transgress. The book of the law, the sacrificial law, is on the side of the Ark of the Covenant. Inside the Ark are the 2 tables of stone with the 10 Commandments written on them. The side of the Ark of the Covenant is the book of the law that needs to get circumcised, right? Circumcise your heart. So if the Ark represents your heart, inside your heart, written on your heart, are the 2 tables of stone, the 10 Commandments. And then you have to circumcise your heart. What are you doing? You're cutting off the book of the law. You're cutting off the punishment that was added for transgression until it were finished in verse 24. Now, when is this finished? This is in, sorry, I'm sitting in a weird spot. In the Gospel of John, chapter 19, verse 31, I think it is. Verse 30. So, Yeshua is on the stake. He gets the vinegar and hyssop. The sponge with vinegar, and they put it upon hyssop and put it to his mouth. And when Yeshua therefore had received the vinegar, he said, it is finished. And he bowed his head and gave up the ghost. What is finished? Until it is finished. The book of the law, the punishment that was added as a witness against us, until it is finished. Yeshua ended the punishment for the sacrificial law, or for the transgression of the golden calf. He finished that punishment. The punishment was the schoolmaster, right? What does a schoolmaster do? It teaches you. What is the sacrificial law there to teach you? How to keep the 10 Commandments. So at Horeb, they get the covenant and they say, all that you have spoken we will do. We want to be a holy nation, a kingdom of priests and a peculiar treasure. We want to be that for Jehovah. Immediately, like in a month, they built a golden calf because they got bored waiting for Moses. The punishment for the golden calf was the schoolmaster. Hey, stop that. No. The punishment for the golden calf was the schoolmaster, because they are stiff-necked people. It's no different from today, really. Everybody's still a bunch of stiff-necked people. They need the schoolmaster. Many people in the Torah community still live under the schoolmaster, but Paul tells us that that is a yoke that neither our fathers nor us could bear, because it's so strict. I mean, think about, like, when you're kids, you have rules in your house, right? When your kids break the rules, what do you have to do? You have to get really strict until the punishment is done, and you're like, okay, I think you've learned your lesson. We can relax these rules again. Go have some fun. But don't do that same thing. Don't boast against the natural branches and say, I can do the same thing that got me in trouble in the first place. Right? Don't do that. So the punishment, the schoolmaster, teaches us how to keep the 10 Commandments. So if it's used lawfully, it is good, but it is done. We don't live under the sacrificial law. We don't wear tzitzit. We don't wear single fabric clothing. We don't put literal borders around our house. We don't, when it says write the law on the front lids of your eyelids, we don't have to wear funny boxes on our heads with the 10 Commandments written on them. We don't have to do all these nitty-gritty things. And when somebody breaks the Sabbath, we don't have to stone them. When somebody commits adultery, we don't have to stone them, because that was the schoolmaster. It was the punishment. There was nothing honorable about that, but Yeshua came to magnify the law and make it honorable. As Isaiah 42:21. How did he make it honorable? By giving us a huge portion of grace. He gives us the spirit of grace and the spirit of truth through the shedding of his blood on the cross. So now, instead of having to live under this very strict schoolmaster, now we obey the grace, the divine influence on our heart, and then it's reflected in our life through our obedience to the covenant. When we are obedient to the covenant, we get the spirit of truth, the Holy Ghost, which comes to reprove the world of sin and righteousness and judgment, so we can turn around and teach others the covenant, so that we can speak with salt and have our speech always be seasoned with salt, which is grace, so that we can pour grace, more grace out onto the world. So, okay, I went on a bit of a tangent there, but I hope that made the point. I hope that was a clear explanation. Read Exodus 17, 19, 20. I mean, really try to read through as much of it as you can, but 17, 19, 20, 32 explains the covenant that was given at Horeb. They received the terms of that covenant at Sinai 3 days later. 40 days later, Moses comes down from Mount Sinai. They had broken the covenant, and they get the punishment, the sacrificial law. Deuteronomy 4-10 tells you, it's a recapping of that same story, And then Deuteronomy 31 tells you this is the book of the law. The book of the law is different than the law that was written on stone tablets. So the book of the law is on the outside of the ark until it is finished. The Ten Commandments are on the inside, and that is a permanent, perpetual covenant that never ends. You do this in the land wherever you go. But when the seed should come, that the transgression, the law added for transgression should be finished, the handwritten ordinances that Moses wrote and is put on the side of the ark, when that is finished, we're refreshed back to the Holy Covenant. That's the gospel. The good news is that we're no longer under the schoolmaster. Now we just have to keep the 10 Commandments. Now we just get to keep the 10 Commandments. We don't have to do all the extra stuff because he gives us this huge portion of grace that is your conscience. And if you obey that grace, if you listen to your conscience, God is going to teach you how to keep the 10 Commandments, because we no longer need the schoolmaster. God is our teacher. Jehovah is our teacher. And if we sin, we have a mediator. It's Yeshua. And he's there to help us along, to continue to pour that grace out on us, to plead our cause with the Father, so that we can continue to have that Holy Spirit of truth. And the point of that is so that we can turn around and teach others the covenant, so that we can do what I'm doing right here. So if you are watching this video and you can hear this, study it out. Go see for yourself what the scriptures say. Go read it. Don't take my word for it. Go put your eyes to the words and read it yourself. And then turn around and go teach other women. So love you, ladies. If you have any questions, please ask. I hope that made sense and that I wasn't just rambling on. And yeah, may grace and peace be with you all. Praise Yah.